Welcome to Women Don't Do That, where we empower you with inspiration, knowledge, and skills to redefine your boundaries and unleash your potential. I'm Stephanie Minton, founder and CEO of Beacon North Strategies and your guide. Small town girl turned CEO while navigating career, motherhood, ADHD, and chronic migraines. Our conversations range from interviews with visionary women to solo episodes filled with actionable insights. We are your hub for turning what ifs into let's go. Are you ready to redefine your possible? Let's get started. In today's episode, I'm talking with Meghan Spilka O'Keefe, a Vice President of Government Relations and Communications at a professional membership organization. She is an officer of the Canadian Armed Forces, a mom, a long-distance runner who has pushed through some serious health challenges. She is very impressive. We dig into what it really looks like to build an impressive career while serving in the military and raising a family. By the end of this episode, you'll hear Meghan's honest reflections on navigating in male-dominated spaces, the real challenge of balancing career, service, family, and health, and the important skills and lessons that have carried from the military into her work and home. And that is a piece that I loved learning about. And there are definitely things that I have taken away from this conversation for my work and family life, and I know that you will too. Let's get into it. Welcome, Meghan.
Hello, how are you, Stephanie?
Great. It's so nice to have you here with me today. We like to kick it off by getting to know people better. So, can you tell us more about what motivates you to live your best life?
Oh, what motivates me to live my best life? Here's the full disclosure story. I have a heart condition and it was diagnosed when I was a little kid. Had it not been diagnosed, I would have had a much shorter life expectancy. And so
Mm,
I had surgery, and I think I don't take a lot for granted.
mhm.
As a result, I just kind of try to squeeze every second out of every day, and that motivates me to just get as much as I can out of the world around me and give as much positivity where I can, and yeah, lead a good life.
That's really impactful, and I can definitely see how that would how that would shape your outlook through, all the things that you do. So thank you for sharing that. Can you talk about like what does life look like for you right now?
Oh, what does life look like for me? Like, it's a lot going on. I'm a mom of two young ones. I've got a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. So the house is just like full of joy and love. I've got an aging dog. She's very sweet. Life right now is the home life with love and family, and then full time busy role. I'm a VP of Government Relations and Communications at a membership based association in Toronto. We're in a hybrid work environment, so a couple of days of work in the office, day here and there at home, which is a nice balance to strike. And then I also am an Army reservist. I about to go a little bit of a backseat the last couple of years, but it's ramping up again. So I'm a kind of a part-time soldier in the Canadian Army Reserves. And then every day, every weekday at least, some weekends include some form of fitness. So that's a lot to squeeze into 24 hours. And
Mhm.
then, my kids still don't sleep through the night, and we try to cook and eat balanced meals, and I try to see my friends. So life is like very full on, but awesome. Yeah, it's really great in it right now.
It sounds very relatable to me, and I'm sure to many listeners, right? Like you're just carrying all of the pieces and trying to enjoy the pieces as you can and also thrive as much as you can. And it's a difficult act to keep it all going, which is very relatable. For those who don't know, the work that you do in government relations and communications as a VP, what does that mean? What do you do in the day to day?
Okay, so I represent an organization that has all the members. It's a membership association. So we represent a specific sector. I'd say the bulk of my work is provincially focused, though there is some federal and a little bit of municipal. We essentially, here's my succinct way of putting it, project and protect the interests of our members at Queen's Park. and in kind of the landscape, the Ontario media landscape, make sure that their interests are represented, that we're sharing what's important to them. And then if we see things that represent, challenge to their role and their well-being and their sustainability, maybe it's legislation, maybe it's something like we go try to engage and solve that problem. So that's the role.
It sounds like very important work, and given I do similar work, I have a good sense of what that looks like. But thank you for trying to give a picture of that to people listening who many will not be in our sector and maybe know much about what we do. You talked about being a reservist. Can you share what does that actually mean for people who may not know?
Sure. Okay. So I'm in the Canadian Army Reserves, which is part-time military. I've been in the part-time military, the Army Reserves, for 15 years, and I am an officer. But I started as a non-commissioned member and then came through the ranks. What does it mean? So part-time soldiers, they are attached to a local unit, usually close to their community. They parade or participate in army stuff, usually 1 to 2 weeknights a week, and then usually one weekend a month. You go and you serve, and then you do take time away from your civilian life, be it work, school, what have you, for training opportunities, for career growth, and then you can take time away to do things like deployments and other activities in the military. So for me, the last couple of years has really been like a lot of a step back. I was actually in the process of releasing and maybe leaving the military, but I've since kind of changed my tune. And so it's increasingly going to get back to this 1 to 2 nights a week as an officer. So training with soldiers and then some administration work, and then about one weekend a month on average, plus or minus, to go out into the field or to do focused training and to kind of sharpen your skill sets and practice and train as you fight.
Okay. And when you talk about training your skill sets, like what does that mean? What type of skill sets?
Technically, I am an artillery officer, so shooting cannons or directing the fire of
Wow.
cannons. I was formerly an infantry soldier, so shooting machine guns and stuff like that. But what I've been doing in practice is working in what's known as CIMIC, civil military cooperation, and doing things with domestic deployments and community engagement and gender engagement and a whole host of kind of non-kinetic skill sets. And so training for us in that capacity looks like building our engagement to work with community partners to ensure that in the event of a domestic emergency, you've got the skill set to work with municipal authorities and support them, making sure that you have an awareness of your area of responsibility or area of operations and the community partners in there, learning things like face-to-face engagements, how to do briefings, how to work with vulnerable people, like that kind of stuff. So on the artillery side, it's actually like practicing shooting and directing firing and maintaining soldier skill sets, like being in the field, in the woods, maintaining weapon skill sets to shoot guns and stuff, and then also the soft skills on the kind of civic side.
hmm Sounds very interesting. And like you're engaged in a wide variety of different activities within that too, which I'm sure keeps it interesting in many ways as well. How did you first get engaged with the military to begin with?
Okay, that's a great question. So, I mean, I was kind of coming to age when 9/11 happened. I was in high school,
Mm,
and that had a big impact. And
mhm.
I looked at Canada as then, as it came out, like the mission in Afghanistan, and that evolved. And I got really interested in kind of my family's military history. My grandfather served in the Second World War. And then kind of from there thought like, okay, maybe I would like to participate. But I sat on the fence for a little while. When I was in my undergrad, though, I did a semester abroad to the University of Swaziland. And
Mm,
when I was there, I was learning a lot about conflict and security issues in sub-Saharan Africa, civil war, and the impact on women and children. And I sat back and kind of had this like realization that, I thought if there were more women in the military, women in charge, some of the abuses that had happened in certain parts of the world may have been reduced or mitigated, or there
mm,
could have been some alternative outcomes there. And I sat with that thought and said to myself, like, I can't just believe this. Like I could do this, and see if there's a
Mm.
leadership role and the impact I could have with people around me might mean something. So then I kind of came back from that experience, put my name in. The recruitment process then took a really long time. So it actually wasn't until I finished my master's degree,
Oh.
and then was settling in, or just actually, I think it was my first week of my first like real job out of school, that I caught the call from a local infantry unit in Ottawa, and they said, like, you want to join? And I remember going to my boss the next morning. Thankfully, I was working in military adjacent, because my interest in school was defense policy and health
Mhm.
policy. So I was working in a defense policy organization. And I went to my boss and said, like, I just got the call from the Army Reserves that I kind of want to do this. And he's like, you have our support. So,
Mm.
I went in, I signed on the dotted line, and I went to basic training. So it reserved basic training then for me, and there's lots of different constructs, was every other weekend for 6 months. So I'd like go to
Mm.
my civilian job Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, and then like every other week, Friday, get on a bus in my army uniform and go get yelled at and do push-ups in the mud and learn how to make a bed and stand up straight and fire a gun and all that stuff. So it's pretty cool.
Wow, that's quite a like merging of two different worlds, right? And interesting to just think about you managing that. And it's really great to hear that your work was flexible, especially given it was such a new role for you to be doing that. Where I don't know, Megan, you probably don't know this about me, and it's a minor piece of my story, but when I was in, I think it was high school, I was one of those kids that went to Connaught and would go for like a week or two and just pull down. For people who don't know, Connaught is a rifle range in
Yep.
Ottawa,
Yep.
and I would pull the targets down and like plug the hole for where the person shot and like throw it back up for the competitions. I
Oh, you
forgot
were
if
in the
I
butts. It's called the butt.
yeah, yes. I forget if I did it for 1 or 2 years, but the funniest thing about it was that Megan and I were just talking about this ahead of time, but we're both short and I am super tiny, like under 5 feet. And I would have to stand on a milk crate because I couldn't reach them. Other people could just reach them. And I would have to grab the target, use my weight, jump off my milk crate, and pull the target down to plug it and throw it back up.
I mean, I still have to do that. So like everyone takes their
Yeah.
time in the butts to go on the range. Like that's at the end. And yeah, I did my training at Connaught. That's so funny. That actually just like reminds me of a side story. When I was in high school too, I rowed crew, like not well, but I did row. And when you have to get the boats out, everybody kind of like lifts them up. And then I would just like, I was so embarrassed. I just like, pretend with my arms up
I
because like
know.
people who row are tall.
And you're like, literally can do nothing here.
And I was just like, I'm just gonna, try my best. But
That's
you
so
feel
funny.
like with a weak link, you're like, okay, I'm not
Yeah.
here.
You're like, I can't do anything in this situation.
Yeah.
I love how you talked about it almost felt like your do something moment about how instead of just thinking about this or worrying about it or like I can become part of that military and I can, have a role for a woman in that space. And one of the things that's been going on in Canada a lot is culture change around women in the military. And I'm wondering if you can speak to that aspect of the change that's been going on.
Yeah, sure. And kind of before I do that, I'll just like give a plug. Sandra Perron, she first female officer in the infantry. Great book called Outstanding in the Field. Movie just premiered at TIFF. Outstanding, really, really great film. If you want to get kind of a glimpse into what that world looks like, I would say it's pretty accurate. And certainly, though, she like I stand on her shoulders, so she's just incredible, and she paved a way for a lot of women in the military, specifically in the combat arms. There's still some parallels, like still some things that even
Mm.
years later, you're like, wow, that's consistent with my experience, and that's pretty interesting. Yeah, the culture change piece, like there's been some starts and stops over the years for the Canadian Armed Forces on making sure that it's a positive culture where everyone can contribute and feels they have the full capacity to contribute. And it's, there's an inherent danger with serving in the military, but it shouldn't be in your day-to-day experience. And when kind of around 2021, there was a lot going on in the culture change space. I just come back from my first maternity leave and kind of turned to my own unit and said, like, okay, like what are we doing here? This is every day in the news. And if you have any experience with either as a recipient of unwanted harassment or anything on that spectrum, or even as a bystander to it, that's kind of hard to see in the news every day. It can be triggering, whatever. And so I came back to my unit and we formed a support group. And then through that support group, engaged first just the women serving, and then also others who were interested, either because they were leaders or they were bystanders or they just wanted to be allies. And then through that formulated a number of recommendations that brought back to my commanding officer at the time, who was just an absolute amazing support. And we came up with some recommendations of what could be done within the unit lines to just make the space a little more positive, and address some of the concerns that were going on, just what people had in their experience, and give that space for people to talk about them. Mm-hmm. And then that enabled me to bring a deposition forward to the Supreme Court Justice at the time, who was evaluating this. And then it went to inform some of the recommendations that ended up going forward. To what extent, I don't know, but ultimately, the reserves are not always top of mind. They're citizen soldiers, and they bring a lot, but at the same time, they're not always able to access everything, right? So it's like you don't always have access to like the intranet and stuff because you're only doing this part-time. So you're not afforded all the same access to resources. So I just wanted to make sure those perspectives were brought forward, and like little things that came to light is like, you go on a course, something happens to you, or like you witness something happen, then you pass your course or the course ends or whatever, and then you go back to your unit. And that's the same in the workforce for sure. And like, you leave, but you're not as connected in. So there's not always that like ability to follow up with things or to see where investigations landed, or just like stay brought up to speed about what's going on. So we were able to kind of come forward with some really practical resolutions, and ideas and policy changes, and just ways in which the unit could support its members better. So it was a really cool experience. And then I was able to support like individual soldiers through that.
Wow. That's very cool and like very practical and impactful work. Are you hopeful about change for women in the military?
I think I am. I mean, it's inherently like there's a job to do. There's some job to do. I think though, we've got a generational change. Millennials are a massive kind of cohort and are now in major leadership positions, like across the board, right? Military and military. And I do think that there's just inherently, as generations change, like new norms that form and behaviors and stuff. So I think if I look to the generations coming behind me, like they're incredible, like great value sets as a whole. And so I think I'm really hopeful. I think like structures are being put in place. There's all the right actions are being taken, and it's there's no reason to not hope.
That's really encouraging. Is there anything else you wanted to add about your own experience as a woman in the military before we move on?
Well, just overall, like my time as a reservist has really kind of catapulted and enabled my civilian career. And you mentioned, how cool it was that I had a supportive employer. Like that has been my experience across the board in my career. I have had so many supportive employers and colleagues. And when I went on to work in the consulting world, I decided to take officer training and took a commission, and had to take a lot of time off of work. And I learned like a big skill set through that was transferable. That is how I lead now. I learned how to build in redundancy into your day to day, how to make sure that you've got good transition plans, So you can go off and do that training, how to, back brief your colleagues and bring people along and lead by example and all. So there's so many components of just military training in and of itself that have, I think, really supported and enabled me in my civilian world. But then, just by virtue of having supportive employers who have enabled me to go off and get that training, also helps me in my ability to grow my career. And so, I mean, shout out to all of the people I've ever worked for. So supportive in not for profit world and consulting world. I've just had like a lot of great opportunities there.
That's amazing. Can you talk about, I want to pause for a second on the piece you said about the redundancy in routines. Can you tell us about that? Because I feel like all of us want to hear. What can tell us what you know.
Okay, so I have like this belief that like you can't be promoted unless someone else knows how to do your job. And I tell my team that all the time. Like, like my job is like yeah, my civilian team. My job is to like help your career growth, to make sure you're contributing what we need for the organization and for our mandate. And to make sure that you can get to your next role, whether it's in our organization, whether it's outside of our organization, like I am going to help you do that. No one can promote you if you're the only one who knows how to do your job. As an aside, you can't take vacation if you're the only one who knows how to do your job. And
Right.
you
So
can't get
even,
sick if you're the only one who knows how to do your job. So I like we build in cross functionality like within my own team to make sure like everyone knows how to do different components of each other's job. And we've got built-in redundancy plans in case somebody gets sick or injured or is just taking their vacation as they should be afforded to do. And so like that for me, when I was in the consulting world, I was so privileged to be able to take a lot of time off to go and do military training. And my clients saw value in it because I worked military adjacent. And my colleagues saw value in it. And then I saw value in it because each time I stepped away for training, sometimes it was only 2 weeks at a time, and then there was a longer stretch too. But it was a chance for me to bring in other colleagues into my files, and they brought fresh new ideas and different perspectives, which then enhanced the clients, like the service offering we were giving. But it also meant that I wasn't alone in my work, and so that like redundancy I think is really important in how you just build teams and 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 kind of structure things.
mhm. That sounds really smart in terms of the cross-functional piece because I feel like in my team, there's definitely some of that for sure, but I think we could even be more intentional. So, yeah, that's really important. Are there other either life lessons or skills that you can see kind of through from the military, whether it's like at work or at home, that you can see how it's impacted your life?
Yeah, I mean, like lead by example is kind of one of the principles of leadership, as is you share hardships. And I
Mhm.
think those two things kind of come hand in hand. If you're going to ask your staff to do hard things, like be prepared to do it with them or
Mhm.
demonstrate that you've done those hard things too. And then genuinely treat your staff and your teams very fairly, respond to their needs and represent their concerns, and like those are just standard principles of leadership that are ingrained in you through military training. And then there's just other little things like it's kind of the saying, praise in public, correct in private, that I've taken with me to the civilian world, and actually integrated into my standard of practice in government relations. And like,
Mhm.
you can say something good and positive about your stakeholders, about government, like any partners you have, do so, because praising in public, like it's a good thing to speak out and say something positive. And if you have a challenge and you need to fix it, like first do that privately, bring it behind closed doors, solve the problem first. It's just so those are just like some little things that
Mhm.
are ingrained in you, that I've just taken with me.
It's interesting you say that one about the problems in private peace because I recently saw that as a quote, like just the other day.
Uh,
So yeah, it's a good reminder. I want to talk a little bit about family life and how have you navigated that through like two careers that are probably challenging, managing with children because the work that you also do in comms and government relations is also challenging.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of communication and coordination with my partner, who is an exceptionally involved in, you know, co-parent, and yeah, my husband and I kind of have a household rule about like division of household tasks and child tasks and stuff, and we look at tasks in the concept of like physical versus mental labor,
Mm.
and try to find balance in that. So like the example I always use with my friends is like a kid's birthday party. Like your kid gets invited to a birthday party and you gotta go to the birthday party. And usually one parent is gonna take the kid to the birthday party. But there's a whole that's an active thing, right? That's a physical thing you have to go and do and take a kid to a birthday party. There's a ton of like mental labor that goes into that. Like who's gonna you gotta RSVP for the birthday party. You gotta make sure you're available to go. You gotta buy a present. You gotta figure out what the kid likes. You gotta wrap the present, make the card, like all of that stuff. And so we tend to try to, as best we can, like look at the household tasks into like breaking up the physical versus the mental load, and then
Mhm.
defining a division of labor of that, so that in the case of like this random example of like going to a birthday party is like only one parent's going to physically go, but the other parent had a role of being involved by like going to the store to pick out the gift with your kid. And so like at the end, everybody's like participated in the birthday party in some capacity. And that's just like one tiny, like neat and tidy example. But we are really conscious of that because like the mental load is huge
Mhm.
for anyone,
Mhm.
right? And
Yes.
like any partner can carry a whole bunch of mental load that one doesn't even know. Like
Yeah.
I honestly have not thought about when we're gonna get our winter tires changed, but my husband has a spreadsheet and he knows when we're gonna do it. So I'm like, okay, cool. He's carrying the mental load. I may be
Yes.
the one who goes to the place to get our winter tires on. But so it's like acknowledging the mental load versus the
Yes.
physical load. And that's like I think how we've struck a really good balance about making sure that there's not a ton of burnout.
Yes.
We are finding a balance and that like and where we can and everybody can participate.
Mhm.
We want to do that, but
Is that
yeah.
something, Megan, that you figured out with each other over time or like early on you had the conversation?
Oh, it started when I was pregnant with my first. I turned to my husband and was like, I'm doing some physical labor here of growing a baby. So you're going to learn everything about growing a baby. And he registered for the Toronto Public Health pregnancy courses. And then he would learn it all. And then he would tell me about it. Because I was like, I don't have the mental capacity to learn anything right now. I'm
Yeah.
physically growing a child. And that's we just like started from the start. We are like, all right, you're gonna do the mental because I'm doing physical. And then then we've like balanced stuff. So I remember on my first, mat leave, I was like, oh man, like I'm gonna have to physically like introduce some foods to our kids because I'm, like that's gonna do it in the middle of the day and he's at work and blah blah. So I was like, he was like, okay, well I'll do the research. I'll figure out like what order we have to do it in and like I'll give you the plan. And I'm like, cool, I'll execute, you plan. So we're just
Yeah.
kind of always like we look at things in the task of like
Right. I
how
feel like I know that your partner also was in the military and is now retired. And I feel like as you're talking, I can just imagine just like your skill sets from that experience coming through in terms of how you figured that out.
yeah, there's this thing called like assigned versus implied tasks, and I think we inherently just like think like that. So
I
yeah.
love that. Can you talk about like you've deployed domestically and your partner has deployed internationally? Maybe about, because I think it's something, maybe you hear about it more, I guess, in the States because they have such a larger military than in Canada, but about how you manage that with partners when the other person is gone for long periods of time.
Well, so both of these were before kids.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So when my husband went to Afghanistan, like, we didn't have kids. We were young. We weren't even married yet. And it was like a very nerve-wracking time, and you lean on your community for support. And then I just did a very short off Lentis domestic deployment to support flood relief, which was really a neat experience.
Mm,
important because it's in your community.
Right.
And I think that, it's incredible to be able to serve in a way that directly serving your community in that respect and helping
Hmm.
people around you. And so I was fortunate enough to get time off of my civilian job, who saw an inherent value in it. And so, we haven't crossed the bridge of trying to figure out deployments with kids. I think
Hmm.
it's hard, but we've also started socializing our kids young that mom serves, and the military store has like our like teddy bears in cat pat, and my daughters have those. And,
Hmm.
so we've talked about this stuff, but that's down the line. Who knows if it will ever happen? But
Hmm.
it's like a consideration for sure.
I'm so excited to share that NextGen 2026 has officially launched. My company, Beacon North Strategies, founded and co-hosted this event with NHM Connect. NextGen has become a leading national professional development event for Canadian public affairs and government relations practitioners and those aspiring to join the sector. It's all about building skills, making connections, and preparing for what's next in our field. Early bird tickets are available now. Find all the details on the Beacon North website, and we'll include the link in the show notes. Right, right. One of the things that you and I know each other outside of, doing this podcast, and one of the things that you had shared about was about your experience in the past year with a concussion, which made me think a lot about my own experience with chronic migraines when I was first diagnosed. And so I'm wondering if you can speak a little bit to one, the experience, and then how you've overcome some of those challenges.
Yeah. So, oh my gosh, like I had a nasty, nasty concussion a year ago. This is my third documented concussion. My first was playing rugby in high school. My second
Mm,
was doing some military stuff, and then my third was last August. I had just come off of like a super busy and successful period. We just done like a big conference at work, and that was really impactful. I had just won a triathlon, and oh, thanks.
congratulations.
I like these like short
I
distances.
know, but Megan,
It was kind of cool.
I can't even run 5K, like even when I was like a gymnast. So I'm
Yeah,
so
I like either
impressed.
sports. But then I was just I was like in my house going about my business, and I hit my head twice, like front and back. I got whiplash, and I knew immediately like this was a bad hit. Took a few days off of work, and then tried to come back to work. Probably too soon.
Mm,
My husband was, of course, like away backcountry camping with no cell service, like so
mhm.
many kids. And I passed out. I collapsed at a birthday party like with kids, and then I was like, okay, I gotta 100% step back. And it was a really hard experience to go from 150 like
Yeah.
running full tilt literally in triathlons, and also with like really engaged in my job and full time like all the parenting stuff to nothing.
Yeah.
And like I mean nothing. I could not look at a screen. I could not listen to a podcast. I could not listen to music, and I could barely care for my kids or take the dog for the walk. And it was
Hmm.
just like zero. And I just had to sit with that, and it was
Yeah.
scary and frustrating and hard.
And you don't
And
know how long it's going to be, right? Like
I had
it's,
no idea how long it was going to be. I literally had no idea. And concussion recovery is not linear. Turns out I had ocular nerve damage. I had to do like ocular physiotherapy. I had ligament damage in my neck, like a ton of things from just this hit to my head in the house. I was just making some lunch by having to fully step back. Like I had to almost take an inventory of like, okay, what's the balance I want to strike? Because clearly this balance of 150% is
yes.
up to 11. It's not a balance. And then just kind of really slow it down, and then find a new way to strike how I care for myself and my family, and focus on work and all of that. And so, it was, I'd say it was 3 months of like almost like of total recovery of really stepping back from everything, to and then a gradual increase of capacity. I went from working out 6 days a week to zero. I went
Yeah.
from going to work 5 days a week to zero.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really hard. And so, yeah, I had to like really slowly come back. And then as you start to slowly add things, you also kind of start questioning, like, is this something that's worth my time? Is it not? Like,
Mm,
find a new balance. Can we, um, do we want to be spending our time doing those things and not that things? And like, who are the close friends? And like, how do you be discerning with what you do?
yeah. And what do I say yes to? Is it meaningful to me? Does it meet my
100%.
values? Am I contributing to something? Yeah.
100%. So, I'm just like so, so, so lucky and grateful to have had the support, to have had the resources to recover.
Right.
I realized like that is something not
Right.
always afforded to people, and had that luck to be able to like recover properly. I'd say it was about 10 months until I really like the fog lifted. Um,
Right.
and then, some days are bad still, but for the most part, it's pretty good. So.
Right. So have you found like as you've improved to make sure that you don't overdo it, right? Like it's a constant balance of, not being at the 150% again, because it's so easy to do that.
Yeah, and like the things that, maybe not everybody, but people like me tend to let slip are like getting a good night's sleep,
Oh yeah.
eating a balanced diet.
Yes,
It is
yes.
like imperative that I eat well, and imperative that I actually rest and recover. And
Hmm.
I'm not one of those people who's just like gonna sit and do nothing, but actually it turns out you kind of sometimes have to sit and do nothing and like actually
Yeah,
just
and to train yourself that
rest.
that's not actually being lazy, which for some of us is what we think.
Yes,
And you're
yeah,
telling yourself you're lazy while actually needing it to function.
absolutely. And like
Yeah.
for me, this past summer when I did, went back to doing some triathlons and stuff, I'm pretty disciplined with my morning routine, getting up,
Mm.
getting my workout in kind of first thing. And that's usually 5 to 6 days a week. And then, to actually, as I recovered, go, no, I did not sleep well. It is
Yeah.
more important to sleep than to get the long
Mm.
run.
Hmm.
And if I don't do that race, it's not a big deal. Like there will be others, and actually learning to accept that and to take
Yeah.
care of yourself in the moment has been a huge learning curve.
Yeah, it is really challenging. And so many of us and so many of the listeners, whether, depending on health issues or injuries that, don't get better or health problems that don't get better, um, like live with some of these things, right? And it's not just the physical, so much of it is the mental. I remember when I was first diagnosed with chronic migraines, because I was always such an overachiever, I was really having a hard time accepting it. And my doctor sent me to therapy because she's like, you need to like accept that this is your life now. And I was like, oh, this is not. And even now, like I still just I'm do so much, like, but I still don't have the same capacity that I used to. And that's really hard to accept that that's, your new normal. And I appreciate what you said about the sleeping and stuff because I feel like it was maybe mid 30s, maybe a little bit before that, where one day I finally realized because not only am I like a high achiever, I have chronic migraine and I have ADHD, but I actually thought and never even recognized it that going to the bathroom, eating, and sleeping were a complete waste of time. And I was like, wait a minute, I think I need to do a bit of a brain shift here. And I tell you, as we enter our 40s, you need that sleep a little bit more than you did before. So now I'm definitely like, no, everybody back off. I need to go to bed a decent time.
Yeah, no, seriously, and like maybe the crack of dawn for me, like is this morning is a sleep in till 7 a.m. morning, which sadly with kids that's a sleep in these days.
Yes, yeah, that's so true. Well, thank you for sharing that because I think a lot of women listening will be able to relate to some of those challenges and just feel seen, right? And recognizing that that can be hard and it's okay. And appreciated how you shared, trying to be careful to not overdo it too.
Thanks. Yeah.
As we jump into the rapid fire questions, is there anything else you think you want to leave listeners with or that I haven't mentioned that you think is important?
No, I think every day, like your podcast kind of gears to working professional women, a lot of whom have childcare responsibilities, and like it's a lot. It's a lot to balance, and some days are graceful, and some days you get to work and you realize you've got yogurt on you. So like,
So relatable.
we just find the balance we can where we can.
Yes, yeah, that sounds right. Can you share a rule you've broken that turned out to be a great decision?
Yeah, so so that's an interesting question. I'm gonna take this to like the household level. I used to have this like arbitrary rule about like when you get dessert and when you don't, like with the kids and household and stuff. And then I totally flipped it on its head, and started kind of really embracing and reading a lot about like body positivity. I'm raising two young girls, and I think
Hmm.
it's important to have like a degree of food neutrality, and body positivity and stuff. And so we actually, what it used to be like desserts for special occasions and birthdays and stuff. And now it's just like we pretty much have dessert every night. And it's like a cookie or something. Like it's not a ton. But the rule for me that I guess it kind of broke of like arbitrary of like don't eat too many sweets and stuff, is now I eat dessert with my kids like
Mm.
every night. And so again, like maybe it's just a cookie or like a little bit of ice cream or like some fruit and whipped cream or something, but it's like I eat dessert with them every night because I want to model that like an adult woman has no reservations about
Mm.
a cookie and a brownie and like
Yeah.
whatever serving, and that there's no restrictions on that. Like it's
Mm.
and it's just yeah, it was like and I mean, I don't think we necessarily deserve every night, but like pretty much more, a lot more than I would have expected we would have. But yeah, it's just like arbitrary rules we make up in our head, and now it's like my commitments. Like if my kids are having dessert, like yeah, they're gonna see mom eat some cake too, and so it's and then they'll also see me when sometimes I'm just like no, I'm just it's not my favorite, so I'm not interested in it, and modeling that too and that choice. But I guess it's kind of like a rule that I broke over time.
I love that. Thank you for sharing. Who's a woman who continually inspires you?
Oh, I mean, I've just had so many incredible women that I've worked with. The easy ones like my mom inspires me. She does. I'm the family of women that I'm surrounded by, but I'll just like throw to like a book I just read. I really enjoyed by this woman Hilary Peach. She's Canadian. She's based out in BC, and she's a Boilermaker. And she wrote a memoir called Thick Skin about her time as a Boilermaker, which is a very
Oh,
male-dominated field in the skilled
yes.
trades. And most of us in like our line of work would not really have a lot of exposure to like
Yes.
you know being just to welding and being a boilermaker, and
Yes.
I found it a really cool read, and I was so inspired by women in the skilled trades and male dominated fields and kind of some of the challenges she faced. And yeah, so just I don't know if it's like continually inspired because I only have
Yeah.
the snapshot of who she is, but I found that to be a really interesting read.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. We've actually had a Boilermaker on the podcast
Oh,
before.
cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was like, oh, yeah, I know a little bit about that. Exciting. So you may have already mentioned it today. What is one book that has significantly impacted your perspective or values?
Oh, that's a hard one. There is a book that I reread a lot called Matterhorn by Carl
Okay.
Malantis. He's a Vietnam War vet who wrote a fictionalized version of his time in Vietnam. It is a big read. It is a telling read about like just the challenges of war and all that. And then he has a nonfiction version after. I don't know if it's for my value set or anything, but there's not a lot of books I'll reread, and that's one that I actually have read a bunch.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. It's always nice. Some of the ones are reoccurring books, which is great because I guess that means it's very impactful, but it's always nice to learn about new ones as well. So thank you for sharing that. Thank you so much, Megan, for joining us today and sharing your personal story and your experience professionally and some of the things that you do at home that will help women today as well. And you've overcome a lot of challenges, also just doing so many exciting things at the same time. You're real about how hard that is. So thank you for sharing with us today.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us on Women Don't Do That. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating or review. Connect with us on Instagram at Women Don't Do That and visit our website www.womendon'tdothat.com for more details. Join our Patreon to support our work. Find all of the links in the show notes. Remember, you have the power to transform your what ifs into let's go. Together, let's redefine your possible. Until next time. The opinions expressed by guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of Women Don't Do That, Stephanie Mitten, or affiliated brands.